Well, meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is blasting President Trump after he forced her to postpone a congressional trip to Afghanistan and Egypt. On Wednesday, the president sent Pelosi a letter telling her to reschedule her visit to meet with U.S. troops until after the government shutdown. He went on to suggest if she still wanted to make the journey, she could fly commercial. The letter was sent one day after Pelosi told the president to delay his State of the Union address because of security concerns. Today, Pelosi's office released a statement saying despite the president revoking the use of military aircraft, the delegation was prepared to fly commercially to proceed with this vital trip to meet with our commanders and troops on the front lines. But it goes on to say that the administration also leaked their commercial travel plans this morning. So due to the, quote, grave threats caused by the president's action, the delegation has decided to postpone the trip. Here's Nancy Pelosi today.
You never give advance notice of going into a battle area. You just never do. Perhaps the president's inexperience didn't have him understand that protocol. The people around him, though, should have known that.
The White House denies leaking information, calling it a flat-out lie. Colby Itkowitz is a political reporter for The Washington Post and joins us now. So, Colby, okay, it's day 28 of this government shutdown. How disheartening is this feud for these workers who have been hoping to reach or see some sort of a deal at this point?
Right. So what we've come down to now is the President of the United States and the Speaker of the House sending each other letters, taking things away from each other. No one is actually talking about how we're going to reopen this government. Nancy Pelosi took away the State of the Union, but she actually just made a request. She said maybe you might consider postponing your State of the Union address because we're in the middle of a shutdown. What President Trump did was say you absolutely cannot go, and in doing that, expose the fact that they were going, and that is a very serious security threat.
So how are lawmakers responding to this tit-for-tat that keeps on going? I mean, that's the only thing that seems to be moving forward is they keep aiming fire at each other. But right. What now?
So they're responding as you would expect them to respond. Along partisan lines, Republicans have blasted Nancy Pelosi for what they say threatening to take away the State of the Union from the president as some kind of retaliation. And Democrats have fired back that by President Trump not allowing her to take a military jet to visit troops in Afghanistan was untoward. So again, that's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about these two letters, and we're not talking about reopening the government, which is affecting 800,000 federal workers who aren't being paid.
Tell me something, Colby. Have you heard anything? The president hasn't weighed in on whether he will delay this speech. What are you hearing? Do you think it might happen?
We haven't heard anything yet. Nancy Pelosi said, feel free to send us a written report on the State of the Union. She suggested he give the address from the Oval Office. Republicans in Congress have said, well, why don't you come up anyway on January 29th and just give the address to us? The Senate has talked about maybe opening up their chamber to let him speak there, but nothing yet on whether or not he actually will give some kind of address on January 29th or delay it till a later date.
You know, in your reporting, you point out that the president wants to revive these long sought-out infrastructure talks, but it's likely it might include a wall. Tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah, sure. So the president, throughout his entire campaign, has talked about infrastructure as one major promise that he's made to his voters, the fact that we have a third world infrastructure, and he really wants to modernize it. Now, that is a bipartisan opinion. Everyone across all spectrums agree that we need to do something about our crumbling infrastructure in this country. The problem has always been how to pay for it. Democrats think we should, raise new revenue. Republicans have looked at privatization. But when the president introduced a plan last year for infrastructure, he said, my infrastructure plan will include building a wall. We're gonna build it. That's what his version of an infrastructure plan would include that. And I guess that's job creating, but not really infrastructure in the traditional sense. If in fact he does put forward an infrastructure plan that would include a wall, you can imagine how that would go.
I'm just curious, though, but packaging it with infrastructure, would that be a better way for the White House to end the shutdown?
I imagine that it might be a way out for President Trump to say, okay, we can reopen the government, but then I want to have a larger debate about infrastructure and include the wall in it. The way that the Democrats have approached the wall itself, I can't imagine them wanting to tie up infrastructure with a border wall debate, which is probably more appropriate in a comprehensive immigration discussion.
Before you go, I want to get your take also on this reporting from BuzzFeed that the president directed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. Democrats are vowing now to investigate. But do you think, on the other end, the silence from the Republicans, could that be damaging for them later on?
I imagine that Republicans are holding back because they don't know if this is true. Right now, BuzzFeed is the only one that's able to confirm, they're the only ones that have reported it so far, and everyone is responding to their reporting. In BuzzFeed's reporting, they say that Robert Mueller has other documents, other witnesses that can corroborate this story, that they actually went to Michael Cohen after already knowing that there was this allegation that Trump had asked him to lie to Congress. So if, in fact, this ends up being true, the Republicans will be in a very difficult position because it is clearly an obstruction of justice to ask someone to lie in front of Congress.
Certainly is. Colby Itkowitz, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.